The dust is settling after Operation Sindoor. Pakistan is fully coming to terms with the damage that's done to them. A price that they've had to pay for backing terror groups and allowing these terror groups to flourish on Pakistani soil for decades together. Indian delegations are taking that very message to the world. A bipartisan delegation is exposing the enemy, trying to sanction them. The damage done to Pakistan militarily is an open fact. In fact, it's being spoken of by Pakistani lawmakers as well. Pakistani ministers have admitted to it, and now Pakistani lawmakers are questioning the Shahbaz Sharif government over how they could suffer losses to this extent. But some within India seem unsure. The Congress has been leading the charge in questioning the Modi government. Rahul Gandhi on an everyday basis has been putting forth certain questions for the Modi government. Some within the Grand Old Party are even casting doubts on the armed forces. When we had the Congress's chief, Mallikarjun Kharge, claimed that this was a chut-put war. The BJP, of course, responded in equal measure. The political face-off continues even now. But to all those in our country and outside, let me give a sense of what exactly Operation Sindoor has achieved. This is what we've learned from our sources within the Defence Ministry. This is what our sources have told us here on CNN News 18. There were several Indian female pilots that were a part of Operation Sindoor. The symbolism was on point as far as India's operation against Pakistan was concerned. 42 Pak military personnel were killed in Indian strikes. India lost 7. That's what we're given to understand. Over 170 terrorists were killed in the May 7 Operation Sindoor strike. Remember, so far, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, the Army have all come out and said that over 100 were killed. But now we know that 170 terror operatives were gunned down, were killed in those strikes that India decisively undertook. Indian forces caused maximum damage in Bahawalpur. That's what we're given to understand. As far as the May 9th and 10th operation is concerned, BrahMos missiles did severe damage to Pakistani air bases. Remember, that's something that Prime Minister Modi spoke of yesterday as well when he was talking about the Rahim Yar Khan air base in Pakistan, which now seems to be in the ICU. India hit all its planned targets with complete precision. The objective of Operation Sindoor was achieved. That's something that the External Affairs Minister of India has also come out and said. It was only paused at the moment. It's a brief halt. Forces are on alert. Pakistan is bound to try and make a misadventure once again, and for that, India is going to be prepared. The military success is a consequence of decisions that were taken after Doklam by the Modi government, militarily and in terms of policy as well. Asim Munir, the Pakistani army chief, who has promoted himself to the designation to the rank of a field marshal, that move is seen as a face-saving gesture here in India. That's something that India is going to be telling the world as well. Aman, my colleague, now joins us, getting us more details. Aman, there have been several questions that have been raised within the opposition ranks here in India. The kind of information that the government is now putting out is answering every single one of those questions.
Well, absolutely, Poonam. This is the big exclusive we have today. Top defense sources are telling us that over 200 casualties were inflicted on the Pakistan side during Operation Sindoor on May 7th, when when we rained missiles on Pakistani terror infrastructure, the headquarters of terror in Muridke, in Bahawalpur, in Kotli. Over 170 terrorists were killed in those strikes, and Indian women Air Force pilots were a part of Operation Sindoor when those strikes were carried out. That's the other big headline which is coming, that Indian Air Force pilots, women Indian Air Force pilots were a part of that operation in which over 170 terrorists were killed, the severest of the strikes, and the maximum casualties were inflicted at the Bahawalpur terror headquarters of the Jaish-e-Mohammed. That is where India has inflicted the maximum damage, and almost the entire family, the terrorist family of Maulana Masood Azhar, has been wiped out in that particular strike. On the morning of May 9th and night of May 9th and the morning of May 10th, India also carried out precision strikes at 9 Pakistani air bases, in which over 42 Pakistani military personnel have been killed. This is what top defense sources are telling us. Severe damage was caused to Pakistani air bases in Sargoda, in Rahim Yar Khan, in Noor Khan air base. There was severe damage inflicted, and over 42 Pakistani military personnel have died in those strikes. That is what Indian sources are telling us. The BrahMos missile was very effectively used in the on the strikes which were carried out at the air bases in Pakistan. what top government sources are also telling us, Poonam, that Operation Sindoor is only paused. We have not ended it, it's only on pause. And India feels that the badly humiliated Pakistan, the failure Pakistan has seen, Pakistan may try to do something, and that is why we remain on full alert. The country is on alert. The forces have been told to be totally prepared for any misadventure by Pakistan. But a resounding success, that what top defense sources are telling us, that every target that India had planned, we managed to hit it, and hit it with devastating effect.
Aman, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. We are seeing this kind of message that's being taken by a bipartisan delegation of Indian lawmakers, of Indian members of parliament to the world. As that delegation takes that message to the world, there are nation-specific dossiers that have been prepared for these countries, for them to be told of exactly how Pakistan has been harboring, has been sheltering, and even allowing terror groups like the LET, like the Jaish-e-Mohammed, to flourish on their soil. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar is also on one such trip, where he's been meeting with his counterparts. He was in Germany this morning after the Netherlands. Listen in to what he said during an interview, how he spoke about what Pakistan did in Pahalgam on the 22nd of April, how Pakistan-backed proxies, Pakistani terrorists, unleashed terror on the soil of India in Jammu and Kashmir, and the operation that India carried out was in response to that. It wasn't the escalation from India's side. The escalation, the provocation, in fact, came in from Pakistan's side. Listen in to that interview of External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar.
Just a little less than 2 weeks ago, President Trump intervened or played a role in the conflict that India has with Pakistan, and has since '48, I think. And he says that he said on his own social media platform that he brokered a peace deal. Do you agree that his approach, which is perhaps more cynical, which is more transactional, does bring more peace with it than the more ideologically or ideal-based approach that has been for some years now?
When we look at big global challenges, I think I would put terrorism right up there as one of the key challenges which affect the entire world. And we've had to grapple with a very serious terrorist attack in April. And what followed was a consequence of that, because the terrorists were based in a neighboring country and were operating with impunity and with a high degree of state protection and support. We had the conflict for a few days that you spoke about. Now, we resolved that conflict for the moment in its particular military form through agreement and understanding for a cessation of firing and military action. And this was something that we negotiated directly between the militaries of the two countries. The trigger for it was that after we had fighting for a few days, we hit them very hard on a particular morning, the morning of the 10th to be precise, and that caused the Pakistanis to say, okay, we're prepared to stop the firing and reach an understanding about how to deal with it. Get that part of it across to you. But as a general proposition, I think right now, there's a conflict going on in Ukraine, as I said, into its fourth year. You have a very, serious situation. Again, a lot of bloodshed in the Middle East. Then there are other aspects to it, Yemen, etc., etc. So.
Now, that was the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar there detailing why exactly Operation Sindoor was necessary. But some within India are unfortunately not convinced. Let's open that up to our panel who joins us this evening. Wing Commander Anuma Acharya, spokesperson of the Congress. Ajay Alok, spokesperson of the BJP, is with us. Lieutenant General Harimohan Iyer, former Chief of Staff, Northern Command. And Kailash Adhikari, political analyst, is with us on this broadcast. Let me begin by asking Anuma Acharya, as far as the Congress is concerned, we had Rahul Gandhi raise questions some time back, just about a couple of hours ago, in fact, on his social media account. Yes, everybody has the right to ask questions in a democracy, but the kind of questions that the Congress and Rahul Gandhi are putting about how many jets went down, who has asked for the US to mediate, either these questions are already answered multiple times by the External Affairs Minister, by the Ministry of External Affairs, by the armed forces themselves, Or this is not the time to ask these questions? Can this wait? Why are we seeing this kind of narrative that's being built by the Congress party at a time when bipartisan delegations are all over the world trying to expose Pakistan?
Good evening. First of all, bipartisan delegation is there and we have to prove that Pakistan is a terrorist country. We have to make that pitch. That is very true. But at the same time, doesn't it talk about a failed diplomacy? Doesn't it talk about a lot of things which armed forces are made to speak? They have very clearly said collateral damages cannot be ruled out. But it's government of the day, why they want to hide everything from the opposition. Every time you say, this is not the time, that is not the time, where is the accountability? Is that the time when Sofia Qureshi was to be called Atankwadiyon ki Behan? Was this the time when Jagdish Devda was to say that army and the entire country Modi ji ke charnon mein jhuk jayegi, jhukna chahiye?
And that minister has apologized multiple times. The other minister is facing a legal case in courts and that will be fought there.
Look, it is not this way. It is the headline changing regime. That is how they do it. Every day they change headlines. The basic question is,
but
why
who is changing the headlines?
For ceasefire, and why that ceasefire was told by Donald Trump before.
But that has been, but Anuma Acharya, that has been countered by the External Affairs Minister, by the Ministry of External Affairs, by the Foreign Secretary who briefed the Standing Committee in Parliament a couple of days ago. Whose word do you want to take? Do you want to take the word of Donald Trump, who wants to take credit and call himself the peacemaker and say that I will end all wars and hasn't managed to end any in the world? Or do you want to take the word of the country that has decisively struck Pakistan and terror groups there?
Did our government condemn Trump even once? When Trump is speaking, he is the head of USA, then are one of the spokesperson from the foreign ministries basically countering it. Is that correct? Shouldn't Mr. Mr. S.
But he has. S. Jaishankar has countered the narrative. He has said very categorically that the ceasefire was done after Pakistan's DGMO called India's DGMO on the hotline after the first move was made by Pakistan as the protocol, as the process was to be followed. And that's when the decision of ceasefire was taken bilaterally between India and Pakistan. US had no role. External Affairs Minister has said that.
We would not allow to forget the basic questions as to why Pahalgam happened, why there was an intelligence failure. This question has not been answered. Where are those terrorists? That has not been answered. Why this is happening again and again when Pulwama had already happened, we were not awakened. At that time, we should have increased the security at that area. We will not ask these questions. And why ceasefire?
Sure, you can ask the questions, and that's exactly what I said right at the start, that we live in a democracy. Everyone has the right to ask these questions. But is this the time and place to do it? We'll have the parliament convene in a few months, in a few weeks from now when the monsoon session starts. Use that as a platform to ask your questions.
Do you really
Why do it at a time when India is sending a delegation to the world, to different parts of the world, to try and expose Pakistan? At such a time, aren't we giving a handle to Pakistan to turn around and say, but oh look, there are people within your own country who don't believe what you've done?
Wow, our EAM has given that handle to Pakistan by informing Pakistanis and the Pakistan government in advance what our government is likely to do.
Again, that's been countered as well.
Services are likely to do. And the thing is, we have a secrecy of time, space and quantum that was compromised that day. They have ditched our armed forces. This is as an armed forces officer.
No, it wasn't. That has been countered.
As an armed forces officer, I have served this country for 25 years. So dare not tell me that what I am saying is not in the country is good. I am talking as a soldier, and I'm asking this question time and
Ma'am, I didn't say what you're saying is not in the country is good.
Element was compromised.
But as far as what External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar said about informing Pakistan, it was done after the commencement of Operation Sindoor. That's been clarified. But Ajay Alok, no amount of clarification seemed to be convincing the opposition.
Let me counter you, because he said at the start. At the start doesn't mean after.
Initial commencement, that is what the Foreign Secretary has said to the parliamentarians as well. That's what our armed forces, ma'am, have also said. But sure, you've had your point. Let the others come in as well. Ajay Alok, no amount of clarifications coming in. Sure, let the BJP respond, ma'am. You've made your point. Ajay Alok, no amount of clarifications coming in from any quarters of the government seem to pacify anybody within the Congress.
No, it's not anybody within the Congress. There's somebody in the Congress. I'm really ashamed. I'm really ashamed that a former Air Force officer does not believe its own Air Force DG Air, who said that no collateral damage to the Air Force was done, all our pilots are safe. But a former Air Force officer does not believe her own
Look,
DG
this is too much of a personal
Operations
attack, and I
Air Force. Please
wouldn't
don't
allow
interfere
that.
in
Please,
between.
Ma'am,
sorry.
he didn't. Ma'am,
No,
nobody.
whatever
Ma'am,
it
nobody
is,
heckled you. Let's
whatever
not
it is,
speak
you
over each
can't-
other, please.
You can't.
I never
cast
interfered.
aspersions to an Air
Let's
Force
not
officer.
heckle each other, please. Let him say what he has to say. I'll come back to you for your rebuttal.
I am not talking about personal attack.
It's not a personal attack on you. You said
He
you've
is
served.
doing that.
You
He's
said
talking-
you've
he's standing
served
in
in
the
the
Air
armed
Force
forces, which is
officer
why you're
and
not
he's
speaking
in
ill of the
government.
country. He has an
Sorry,
opinion
it
over
is
that.
not the purview of you, or it is
Sure.
not in the purview of anyone.
Absolutely.
To say things like that.
Absolutely. And casting aspersions on our armed forces should not be done irrespective of party lines. But
I am with my armed forces and I
sure.
am get comment
But
of the day,
unfortunately,
comment
ma'am,
of the
some within the Congress
weak
are not,
comment.
including
Sorry,
Congress's
it's
chief
a
who called this a
weak
chut-put
comment.
war.
Our
I don't know who
armed
he was
forces are
questioning
very
then. In your opinion, maybe it
Sorry to
wasn't the
say,
armed
our
forces,
armed
but it was.
forces are brave.
But Anuma Acharya, please, just a second. Let Ajay Alok finish, please. Let's not heckle each other over this. Ajay Alok, go on.
The word D has gained a very much big importance today. The word D. Because D stands for democracy and D stands for damage. And D stands for decimate. Our armed forces had decimated Pakistan on 10th morning. The whole world knows it. Congress doesn't know. Congress asks how much decimated India was. Please tell us. We have a right to know. We have a right to know how much decimated India was when its fighter planes, Rafales, were put down by Pakistan. Please let us know. The whole world does not ask. Congress asks. Do you know why? Because again D comes, the damage. The damage to the brain is so severe in the Congress party that their grade level and intellect area is absolutely gone. They simply don't understand that when the country is at war, diplomacy stops. When the country is at war. Now it's the time to expose Pakistan. We are sending delegations to all the part of the world with all party MPs. Their MP starts raising multiple questions. I mean, they are not supporting even their own MPs. They are not standing with the government at any point of time, with the country at any point of time. What they want to gain? Are elections going to come up now? What are you trying to achieve? It's absolutely beyond imagination. By defaming your own country, by defaming your own armed forces, by making belittle your own armed forces that yes, we did suffer
forces
casualty.
are
What happened in
dished by-
Pahalgam?
Ma'am,
What
let him
happened to the
finish,
terrorists?
please. I'm
Every
requesting
day.
you. I'm requesting you again, please, ma'am. Let's not speak over each other, please. Let's not speak over each other, please.
The truth. And
Sure,
the
you
truth
made
is
your
that-
point. Let
but
him
the
make his
BJP
point as well.
government, BJP spokesperson is consistently
This is restlessness.
talking
No,
lies.
I'm sorry, Anuma Acharya.
I'm
If this
sorry.
continues, I will
I'm
have to
sorry.
lower your fader. Please let him have his say. We have the other two gentlemen waiting
But-
patiently
but
as well.
Why are you supporting a
30
lie?
seconds. 30 seconds. 30 seconds, Ajay Alok.
This is just restlessness by the Congress, nothing else. What is happening in your TV screen and what is happening on the ground. This is sheer mad restlessness by the Congress and its leaders because the damage to the brain is severe to the leaders. We can't help it. Right now, armed forces are actively involved both within the house and on the border, neutralizing the terrorists and taking a guard at the enemy. We are at the war. Operation Sindoor is not yet over. So please keep quiet. Whatever the answers, whatever the questions you have, we have the upcoming
I am
parliament
not
session
taking
in the
any
monsoon.
directions from
Please
you,
go
but
ahead.
I do respect the anchor.
I'm not talking
What's
to
taking
you.
quiet?
You are not worth
Okay.
talking.
Okay, Ajay
You are
Alok,
not
Ajay Alok, and Wing
directly
Commander
talking to me.
Acharya,
There is
please.
an
Let's
anchor in
not take personal pot shots at
But
each other. And I want to get in the
anchor
other
has
two
to be
gentlemen
between.
as well.
Nobody can directly point fingers at anyone.
Nobody is pointing fingers. These are comments that are made
He
in
is
public
doing it.
domain
No,
by
he is
Congress
doing it
leaders,
time
ma'am.
and again, and you are not
No,
even
these are
looking at
comments that have been made by Congress leaders, including the Congress's chief. But let me get in Lieutenant General Harimawar Iyer as well. The contentions that are being raised by the Congress party also include the fact that the surprise element was lost of Operation Sindoor because External Affairs Minister decided to tell Pakistan that we were going to attack. Despite there being a clarification coming to the fore that it was only done after the initial commencement. If you could enlighten our viewers as well as to what the protocol is in such situations.
Good evening and thanks for calling me on your show. Let's put certain things in order. Firstly, a terrorist attack happened on 22nd of April. Thereafter, the government took certain actions along the entire CNP of the country. There were diplomatic measures, there were certain information measures, there were certain economical measures. And continuing in that process, there was to be a kinetic measure. It could have happened on any date. The government chose night of 6th and 7th of May, and they carried out a kinetic attack. Now, in armed forces, we call something called selection and maintenance of aim. When you have picked up an aim, you select the option which is confirming to that aim, and thereafter you carry out your tasks to ensure that that aim has been achieved. I am sure the wing commander from the Congress is also aware of what I am trying to say. In this particular case, the aim was very clear that you were to strike certain terrorist resources in Pakistan. Now that possibly was the aim at which operation was undertaken. Brilliant operation, if I was to say. Marvelously conducted by the entire spectrum of people, including the Air Force and the Army. And I've been saying it regularly on your channel. It must be put on place that it involved 2 Air Force and 3 Army commands. It's not an easy job. It was wonderfully executed. And I don't agree that the security of this operation was lost at any stage. Having completed those attacks, on the morning of the 7th, a press brief was released by the government saying that India has responded militarily to counter the terrorist attack that took place on 22nd of April. We have not targeted any military installations, and we have achieved what we have set out to achieve. At the same time, we also mentioned in that press brief that we do not want to escalate the matter anymore, and we can call this operation as over. That, I believe, is what the External Affairs Minister was trying to say, that we had communicated to Pakistan at the start of in the whole thing, that we are only going to do this much and nothing more. And I believe we continued with it, because again I would like to say, because there is an ex-Air Force officer sitting in the panel today, whenever we take air operations across the border, we carry out something called suppression of enemy air defense and destruction of enemy air defense. It carries on for a period of 7 to 8 days. It is not that we just launch an air operation off the cuff. This was possibly the first time in the history of the world that even the Americans did not do in Iraq or Afghanistan. They also went on to knock off all the air defense elements before they launch an operation. So I believe that there is a misunderstanding in the wordings which possibly the external affair, and I don't want to get into the politics of it because it does not affect me. Sure. I am just putting across the kind of matter which was executed. And if I would also like to say, over the period of time, we have been able to execute what we set out to do and more, because Pakistan tried to respond to us on the 7th afternoon and on the night of 7th and 8th, following which we expanded the horizon of the operation, went on to hit his air defense elements on the night of 8th and 9th, and subsequently knocked off 11 air bases across the length and width of Pakistan, including those areas which he couldn't have even dreamt of.
And that's something that's confirmed by Pakistan as well.
It has been confirmed by everybody in the world.
Kailash Adhikari, we had several lawmakers in Pakistan even today come out and question their own government, their own army, as to why they face the kind of losses that they have, how India managed to strike so deep into Pakistan, and yet the kind of narrative that continues.
Just one more thing I'd like to add. Just one more thing I'd like to add. Whenever you are undertaking an operation of any nature, it could be a trans line of control fire, or it could be an air action, or it could be a surgical strike, there are a degree of losses which you are bound to have. It could be in terms of men or material. And that generally is given to the government, that if you plan this operation, A, B, C could be the kind of losses that you are unlikely to undertake.
Right.
And thereafter the choice is left to the government.
And that's something that was asked to the armed forces as well during one of their press briefings, and they said that it's an ongoing operation and such details cannot be revealed. And yet we have Rahul Gandhi every single day ask how many jets were down. But Kailash Adhikari, we have Pakistani lawmakers come out and admit to the kind of losses, question their own army and their own government as to why they couldn't block any of these Indian attacks, of how their air bases have suffered the kind of damage that they have. And yet, for some reason, there are politicians in India that don't seem to see the gravity of the situation.
Poonam, that is the unfortunate situation, that we have enemies within our nation. I remember right from 2004 to 2014, when the Congress government was in power, numerous terrorist attacks have taken place. I'm from Bombay, Poonam, and I know the horrific incident that took place on 26/11. I mean, Mumbai was battered at that particular point of time, and the then Home Minister, he had the complete audacity to come out in the press conference along with Mr. Rahul Gandhi and say that इसमें क्या बड़ी बात है, 31 महीने बाद कुछ हुआ है. How shameful is that? How shameful is that? That is where the problem lies, that the Congress party cannot digest the fact that here is an India who knows how to retaliate. If the integrity and the sovereignty of the nation is attacked, here is an India, here is a government, here are the Indian armed forces who are not afraid to retaliate, who have the backing of their Prime Minister, who have the backing of their government to give a befitting reply to the enemies of this nation. And look at now the stand that the government has taken. It's so beautiful and it's so diplomatic and it's so strategic that teams which have the bipartisan teams, as we just mentioned, people from all walks of political life, from all the political parties representatives, they have been sent into various nations where they have been told about the facts of Operation Sindoor and how Pakistan has attacked the integrity and sovereignty and how India has retaliated back without hurting any civilian life in Pakistan or without attacking any civilian, causing civilian loss there. Where at that particular point of time, Pakistan did a foul play where the fighter jets and the civilian planes were going round and round, and we had stopped our airspace so that no civilian is harmed, and they did not stop at that. Look at what low level Pakistan can go. We could all be at our homes, conduct our business, media could be broadcasted, Poonam, because our skies were protected by the Indian armed forces. We should be, as our entire life, we should be, thankful to our Indian armed forces, the Indian Navy, the Indian Army, as well as the Air Force. But it is sad that a government who never, had any counter towards terrorism, they never showed any spine from so many years, because now they are feeling the hatred from the government who has a spine and who can give a befitting reply to terrorists.
Sure. 30 seconds, Anuma Acharya. Is this hatred towards the BJP and the government and Mr. Modi that is translating into the kind of criticism and the questions that we're seeing now at a time when the country should be united? 30 seconds. I have very limited time, please.
Thanks for doing BJP spokesperson's job, and two more are there.
I'm sorry. I can't let you cast aspersions. I asked you a question because of the kind of comments that are coming to the fore from the Congress's quarters.
Poonam, you will not allow me those 30 seconds. Let me tell you that.
No, I'm not allowing you to cast aspersions on my integrity, ma'am. That's not what I'm allowing, but please go ahead and make your point.
Our armed forces have the best speed, best precision, but our political will is the most weak this time, and last 70 years, the weakest one, because they have ceased fire when the army was ready to go ahead. So therefore, I say that we need answers of this. And secondly, do not allow our armed forces, don't be sheltering behind them, because weak leadership, we can see, weak diplomacy, we can see, everything is so clear. And then this narrative building. It is so sad. It is sad. 10 seconds. Because our armed forces never did that.
I'll give you the last 30 seconds, Ajay Alok. Sure. You've raised questions. Let him answer. Let him respond, please. I have very limited time. Ajay Alok, as far as the Congress is concerned, yes, your rebuttal can come to the Congress. But I want to ask you this. If a parliament session is what the opposition wants to be taken into confidence, can perhaps the government take one step on that? Because the monsoon session is going to be a month or so later. Can we get those answers on the platform of the parliament sometime soon? Is that a fair demand to be made?
You don't give up to the demands of an obstinate child, okay? You have to be mature enough. You don't give up to demand to an obstinate child. Second thing, it's very good that in our armed forces there are systems that people get retirement automatically. So good for the armed forces. I wish this system would have been in our politics also.
We could have got rid of many. I'm so surprised, Poonam ji, that you
Ma'am, you raised questions about me as well. Now let him respond, please.
He's not talking about the General Sabia. Right?
He's not talking about you either. He was talking about the armed forces. He didn't name you either.
Look, Poonam, it's a personal
attack. Did I name her? This is the problem.
Ma'am, he didn't name you. There's another armed forces veteran on the panel. I don't see him taking offense. Ajay Alok hasn't named anybody. Please, let's not digress, ma'am. Last 30 seconds, Ajay Alok, before I wrap this up. I request you, Anuma Acharya, please.
I just clearly said we should have had a system in the politics also where useless fellows should have been retired, either by the party or by the system. But unfortunately, we do not have. I said the word D is very important to the country right now. The D stands for damaged brain. The damaged brain syndrome is only causing harm to the country, and he's out and out to harm to the country.
Prime Minister's
For no
weakness
reasons,
is
the absence of grey matter is quite evident in the Congress party, and which is hurting the country's interest. But they fail to understand.
We really hope that the country's interests are paramount for all politicians, irrespective of what political party that they come from, what political side of the spectrum that they come from. I have to leave it there. I thank you all for joining us here and sharing your perspective. We are shifting focus now to another big story that seems to be concerning India. Dhaka is rife with speculation that Chief Advisor Muhammad Yunus may resign. During an advisory council meeting, Yunus is believed to have voiced his desire to quit and address the nation through a televised speech and confirmed that decision. His position seems to be tenuous now as he's at loggerheads with the army chief in Bangladesh. The army chief has stressed on the need for an inclusive election and soon. He's doubted the legitimacy of an unelected interim government. To say that General Wakar is out to oust Yunus may be premature, many would say, but the fact that he wants him to go and he wants a democratically elected government to come into place in Bangladesh, that seems to be the case for sure. General Zaman is upset with Yunus over three particular issues, and he's made that very public during several meetings that he's held. Yunus had proposed elections by June 2026, but the army chief says it has to be done by the end of this year. He has said that only an elected government can ensure stability. Remember, it's one of the reasons why he had helped those groups that had ousted Sheikh Hasina last year and installed this particular individual, which is Muhammad Yunus, as the head of the caretaker government. Wakar also opposes Yunus's plan to establish a humanitarian corridor to Myanmar's Rakhine state. He calls it a bloody corridor. It says that it's only going to risk and put Bangladesh's interests at risk by entering this civil war in Myanmar. The army chief has resisted Yunus's attempts to appoint US-aligned officials such as the National Security Advisor Khalilur Rahman as well. He wants to curtail military influence is one of the allegations that the army chief has made against Muhammad Yunus. So what exactly is going to transpire? What exactly is going to come up next as far as Bangladesh is concerned? There is a deep dive that we want to do for you in this particular situation as to what next could happen in the political scenario of Bangladesh. Is there a coup that's imminent? And if there is, how is that going to affect India? Take a look. Bangladesh is on the brink of another political crisis. Less than a year after Sheikh Hasina's ouster, Bangladesh could see a regime change once again. Muhammad Yunus, the head of the caretaker government, is facing flak from all quarters and could be on his way out. Maybe not voluntarily, but his exit seems to be just a matter of time. Speculation is abuzz in Dhaka that Yunus could resign 9 months after he took over. What gave wings to the speculation was the meeting between Nahid Islam, convener of the National Citizen Party, and Muhammad Yunus on 22nd of May at the latter's official residence. During that meeting, Yunus expressed his displeasure and concern over the current situation and said that he would not be able to work in these circumstances. Pressure is mounting on Muhammad Yunus, and the last 1 week has been tumultuous for the head of the caretaker government. The one man leading the charge against Yunus is the Bangladeshi army chief. Differences between the duo have been increasingly evident. What's interesting is that it was this very man who installed Yunus at the helm after Sheikh Hasina's removal as the Prime Minister last year. And now, he seems to be baying for Yunus's blood. A case of poetic justice, if you will. Bangladesh Army Chief General Wakar minced no words in holding Yunus accountable. His advice was simple. Hold early elections, stop interfering with military matters, and keep the military in the loop on key issues like the proposed corridor. Muhammad Yunus was installed as the head of caretaker government, a temporary one that would eventually pave the way for elections to be held in Bangladesh. 9 months on, that's far from happening. Maybe because Yunus has spent most of his time in the last 9 months traveling the world rather than attend to pressing matters at home. But Zaman is not going to let Yunus forget that. He's not going to let him forget that Yunus indeed is a placeholder, a man without the people's mandate. Zaman wants to be seen as a savior, the army not as a usurper. Hence the push for early elections. He wants Muhammad Yunus to hold elections by the end of this year, but the caretaker government claims that it can only happen by mid-2026. Another bone of contention between the duo is the Chittagong-Rakhine corridor, which Yunus was willing to create to deliver humanitarian supplies to Myanmar. The army chief called it a bloody corridor. The Bangladeshi army chief made it clear that he is firmly against dragging Bangladesh into the festering civil war in Myanmar. The Bangladesh's leading political parties are also with the army on this matter. Awami League, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, as well as all the left parties in the country have all opposed the Rakhine corridor, which is seen as a part of an American power play to block China's land-to-sea access. Now, patience is running thin in Bangladesh. For the first time since Muhammad Yunus-led administration assumed power, tensions spilled onto the streets of the country's capital. Public demonstrations were witnessed, renewed calls are being made by thousands of BNP supporters especially, who marched through the city of Dhaka. The protests have been going on for a week now, but they have seen a significant escalation over the last 2 days. The clock seems to be ticking for Muhammad Yunus. But is there a military coup in the offing in Bangladesh? The growing rift between the interim government and the military raises concerns around Bangladesh's political stability. The military's dissatisfaction could lead to an increased pressure on the interim administration or perhaps a potential takeover. Now, the international community is closely monitoring the situation, urging all parties to work towards a peaceful resolution and the timely restoration of democratic processes. What about India then? Should India be worried? Now, New Delhi's relations with Dhaka have been frosty since the dispensation led by Yunus came to power. There are a number of reasons for that. Attacks on Hindu minorities, release of radical elements from prisons across Bangladesh, and lifting of bans on organizations that have pushed their terror agenda into India. That's just to name a few issues that India has with the Yunus government. The recent remarks made by the head of the caretaker government on India's northeast have only added fuel to the fire. Trade is also affected between the two countries. Just last week, India restricted imports of ready-made garments from Bangladesh. We barred a number of range of consumer goods to 13 land borders in the northeast and West Bengal. In response, Bangladesh has cancelled a big-ticket defence contract worth 180 crores with a Kolkata-based public sector shipbuilder. That's another reflection of the downturn in ties. Now, given this, could the Bangladeshi army being at the helm be seen as a factor of stability in Bangladesh, or will that only make matters worse? Now, while an army coup may not directly threaten India's sovereignty, it would undermine regional stability. It can also strain bilateral relations and complicate India's strategic objectives in the South Asia. Therefore, India has several strong reasons to be concerned. For one, border security. India shares a border with Bangladesh, a lot of which is porous, which spans about 4,000 kilometers. Any unrest could lead to cross-border violence, into arms smuggling, or even infiltration by extremist groups. Political turmoil in Bangladesh could lead to a surge of refugees into India as well, especially into states like Assam, West Bengal, and Tripura. It could strain local resources, it could potentially trigger communal tensions as well. Thirdly, India's northeastern states, which are already sensitive due to ethnic and separatist issues, could be destabilized further by the spillover effect from the unrest in Bangladesh. There also could be setbacks to counter-terrorism efforts as well. A military regime might not prioritize or maintain the same level of cooperation that we've seen between India and Bangladesh in the past, and that could create security blind spots for India. The biggest concern of them all, though, is greater Chinese influence in the region. China and Pakistan have emerged as Yunus's most ardent supporters. Both nations see Yunus's prolonged hold on power and the indefinite delay of elections as beneficial to their own regional ambitions. With a military regime, China could eye greater role with funding or military support, much like what they are doing in Pakistan. That would put India's strategic interests in the Bay of Bengal, BIMSTEC, and regional connectivity projects all at risk. For now, New Delhi has decided to adopt a wait-and-watch approach, hoping that Bangladesh does not go the Pakistan way. Let's open this up. Abhijit Majumdar, author and columnist, is with us. Salahuddin Shoaib Chaudhry, journalist from Bangladesh, is with us as well. Ms. Chaudhry, let me begin by asking you, what exactly is happening? There is speculation over Yunus's exit. There is speculation over a military takeover as well. If you could tell us what exactly is the situation there.
Thank you very much. You see, on the May 21st, when our army chief met Yunus and told him that Yunus has been trying to give St. Martins to the foreign countries and corridor facilities to so-called UN corridor, humanitarian corridor facilities to the United Nations, US, etc. Yunus, our army chief told Yunus this is not his job. Such decision can only be made by an elected government. So Yunus told Yunus, General Wakar has asked Yunus to hold the election by 30th of December this year. But most importantly, the army chief also told Yunus, quote, that we are giving you protection, and you have brought a foreign, you have brought an assassin from abroad to killing me, unquote. So that was the biggest threat for Yunus. Yunus understood that he has done something which has already gone to the knowledge of our armed forces, and it is high treason. So now Yunus is making a game. It's a kind of, he's a con man, big, huge con man. So he is trying to fool the people with his so-called resignation ambition or whatever. He is not going to resign. He's the shameless person in the world. What I understand, Yunus will be arrested sometime next week by our armed forces, and there is no military coup. There is no nothing. Basically, it will be military action, because armed forces must protect the sovereignty of Bangladesh. Yunus is a foreign national. Most of the advisors of his so-called advisory council, they are foreign passport holders. Even Yunus' national security advisor is an American citizen. So these are all bunch of foreign mercenaries flown into Bangladesh by the US deep state and others to ultimately turn Bangladesh into a land of chaos and terror and war. So our armed forces is saving this country, and this is not military coup, nothing. It's a military action. And of course, since Yunus is the prime enemy of Bangladesh now, along with his collaborators and cohorts, so our country definitely will take due course of action against them. And because they have terrorized this country for the last 9 months, they have killed thousands of people. They have murdered Hindus. They have sent 226 journalists to prison with murder cases. Unbelievable. Yunus is a monster. Our country, our armed forces.
And there have been several issues with India as well, Abhijit Majumdar, isn't it? Since in the last 9 months, since Muhammad Yunus has taken over, as far as India's concerns with Bangladesh are, they have increased. Even with trade, we've seen several tit-for-tat sort of measures that have been taken in the last few days. But if there is an ouster of Muhammad Yunus, and before there is a democratically held government that comes in, or elections that are held there, if there is an army takeover, an army coup, how is that going to fare for India?
No, as I said,
I agree with Salahuddin Saab. It's not going to be an army coup. It's going to be army is going to at best play the interim role of handholding till the elections. There could be another caretaker government which is sown in, because I don't think BNP nor the Army League, which right now Yunus has sort of put out of the equation, but ultimately an Army League, maybe a refined Army League as they call it, is going to fight in the elections. Jatiyo Party is also going to be in the elections, and BNP also doesn't want the elections to be held under Muhammad Yunus, especially with the student leaders, that the advisors that are around him are all, most of them are trained by Hizbut Tahrir. Not even, they had even made noises against Jamaat. Imagine, this is the level of audacity that they had said, no, Jamaat they are anyway Islamists. They're from Hizbut Tahrir, which is an extremely dangerous group which has been flying under the radar so far. But now they had, under Yunus, they have been emboldened to sort of, they held a rally in Dhaka, in Gulshan, and probably Dhanmondi also as well. Hizbut Tahrir rally is a novelty. I mean, they were all.
And we've seen the kind of moves that they've done. They've released these all sorts of radical elements from prisons. They've lifted the bans on several of these organizations. But I want to get in. But I want to get in the United States angle as well. You know, there was a lot of speculation after Sheikh Hasina's ouster that the United States had to play a role back then. 9 months on, that same allegation is being made over another individual and his links with the United States.
I'll tell you what. From what I know about the, what's happening there and what's happening with the United States State Department, etc., etc. US, the Trump administration has not yet got its act, together on Bangladesh at all. It still has very little interest in Bangladesh. Key hirings, key positions are still empty. They have not been filled up. So what is happening is a continuation of the Biden administration policy. So this whole Chittagong corridor, etc., that you see, is what CIA is pushing, and CIA is pushing its whole plan. In a way, Hasina was right that they want to create a Christian country or buffer zone between India, Myanmar, and in the area between India, Myanmar, and Bangladesh, which is going to be absolutely disastrous for Bangladesh, but also extremely worrying for India, because you must understand the demographics of. You must take into account the demographics of India's northeast.
Right.
And why it is, it is also, China is also going to be extremely unhappy about it.
Yes.
So I don't think the Chittagong corridor is, going to happen.
And there is objections from the army, from other political parties in Bangladesh as well. But I have a very limited time left on this broadcast, and I want to ask Mr. Chaudhary this. Are we going to be seeing elections held anytime soon? Is that something that is that you see in Bangladesh's future anytime soon?
Election will take place, as I said, but first of all, Yunus must be gone. There must be action against him. And there must be, as Mr. Which also said, that there must be an election time caretaker government. Yunus is not a caretaker government. It's an illegal regime. It must go. We will have an election time caretaker government. Awami League, so-called the Yunus illegal action of cancelling registration of Awami League must be made null and void. Awami League has to come back to politics because it has 45 million voters. Awami League is one of the top largest parties in this country, and then there will be election. But before that, there has been tremendous growth of jihadis, Hizb ut-Tahrir and others, Al-Qaeda also in this country. There are lots of weapons. There are a lot of weapons sent by Pakistan also. So our armed forces has to take some actions and drastic measures for recovering those weapons, taking action and arresting those terrorists and jihadists. And then, of course, there will be election.
Right, we do hope that happens soon enough, and that the spillover effect of what we're seeing, the kind of instability or uncertainty, if you will, that we're seeing in Bangladesh does not spill over into India. But I thank you both gentlemen for joining us here on this edition of The Right Stand. Before I wrap this up, I want to get you an exclusive conversation that my colleague Anand Narsimhan had with the coach of Team India, Gautam Gambhir, of what the road ahead is, especially as we're gearing up to know who India's test captain is going to be. Take a look at this exclusive conversation.
When Op Sindoor was going on and Bharat was bringing somebody to their knees in 90 hours, there were two double strikes that happened within the team also. Two big stalwarts of the game, Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, called time on their test career or their international test career. Were you aware this was going on, and how do you see this? Because that sets you back as a coach in terms of preparations for England.
See, I'll tell you one thing. I think when you start the game and when you want to finish it, it's a very individual decision. No one has the right, be it the coach, the selector, be it anyone in this country, has any right to tell someone when to retire and when not to retire. So it comes from within, and yes, we've got to be without two senior players, two really experienced players, and sometimes I believe that it's the opportunity for some other people to put their hand up and say, okay, I'm ready for it. So yes, it will be tough, but then there'll be people putting their hand up for sure, because this question was asked to me before Champions Trophy as well when Jasprit Bumrah wasn't there, and I said exactly the same thing. Someone missing out might give another person an opportunity to do something special for the country. Hopefully there'll be other guys waiting for that opportunity.
How was it for you? Was it those 3 consecutive ducks that switched it off for you, that you said, it's time for me to call time on my career?
Yes, I got 3 ducks in 2014, and we ended up winning IPL. And I got 4 half centuries in a row after that as well. So that's the kind of profession we come from. That every time, every day, you've got a success or a failure. It's not like our graph goes like this, it goes like this. And that's why it's always exciting to be living on the edge, that living with uncertainty. So as I mentioned, that retirement, when it's time for you to go, is something which is not only about scoring runs, it's not only about how you're batting, it's not only about where your future lies, it's also about how much fire is there inside you, whether you've got the motivation tomorrow to wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and try and be the best you can. There are so many different things that goes inside a human mind and in a sportsman's life, which probably makes him take that decision. And that's the reason why I say that retirement is a very, very individual decision.
2027, ODI, Rohit and Virat both have said that they have their sights there. You think they're an integral part of your plans for the 2027 ODI?
Look, it's still a long way away. We still have
That's the culmination of your tenure as of now.
See, we still have a T20.
Let's hope it gets extended, but I'm just saying.
My point is we still have a T20 World Cup before that. And that is, again, a huge tournament that is going to happen in India. So which is in February, March. So the entire focus at the moment after England will be on a T20 World Cup. And 2027, November, December is still 2.5 years away. And I've always said one thing, if you keep performing, age is just the number.
आपके हिसाब से what works? One captain for all 3 formats? Or perhaps different teams, different leaders for different formats?
Look, ideally, obviously...
Because there is a lot of talent in the bank. I'm not going to question on that, but yeah.
Ideally, as a coach, if you ask me, it's much easier to work with one guy. If you have one captain for all the 3 formats, ideally I'm saying, but it never happens because you got to realize in today's day and age, you can't have a captaining for 12 months in a year because you're playing 10 months of international cricket and then you're playing 2 months of IPL. So imagine who's going to be leading India would definitely be leading the franchise. So imagine putting a young guy captaining the side for 12 months in a year is putting a lot of toll on his mental being or on his game as well. So ideally it's one, but in today's day and age, it is always better to have 2 because obviously that pressure can actually be distributed among 2 people and it gets much more easier for a player to try and be free when he's not captaining the side.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
From the United States, this is with regards to Donald Trump issuing a new threat to Apple, as President Trump has now said that Apple should face a minimum of 25% tariffs on iPhones made outside the United States. And clearly that's a direct threat to Apple's manufacturing plans in India, as we all know. And Donald Trump now coming up with a fresh threat of slapping 25% tariffs as far as iPhones made outside the US are concerned. Pallavi Ghosh joins me with more inputs on that news story. Pallavi, take us through what this could mean for Apple's plans in India.
Well, this would be certainly seen as a bit of a setback because the entire idea of opening Apple plants over here is that you would get state-of-the-art iPhones which are manufactured in India, which that production has already begun, and which obviously, one, it also goes and shows the confidence of multinational companies into India and investing over here and opening shop over here. And second, there was a belief that it would also mean that products would become much much cheaper. Now, recently, when Donald Trump had told Tim Cook that you cannot open Apple plants in India, the government sources, Commerce Ministry sources, had also pointed out to say that politicians often don't dictate to the businessmen, and businessmen don't really need to listen to them. And India was very confident that Tim Cook would not change his mind. Now, this latest comment coming in from the American president will certainly be seen as a setback. We'll have to wait to see if any structured response comes in from the government. But essentially, what it would mean is that if you and I want to buy a phone which is manufactured over here in India, it is going to end up being much more expensive, which is going to be seen as the end of this investment.
So, Pallavi, what does this mean in the current, trade scenario where, remember, Apple is positioning India as an alternative to China, and we know how Donald Trump is currently threatened by China's manufacturing. But what does that mean for India, and does that also mean that one is now looking at higher iPhone rates? All right, we seem to have lost Pallavi, but as we were highlighting, Apple is, of course, positioning India as an alternative manufacturing base, and Donald Trump's tariffs on China have already raised supply chain concerns and fears of iPhone prices rising higher. And Pallavi is back with us. Let me take that with her. Pallavi, as we were saying, that Apple is one company that's positioning India as an alternative manufacturing base to China. What does that now mean in the overall calculus, the trade calculus? Does that mean that Donald Trump is also equating India with China?
You know what happened is that many of the Apple plants from China were shutting shop and they were shifting the base into India or looking at India as an alternative market. And obviously, we were very comfortable of this. As the Indian conditions are concerned, and we were obviously very upbeat about it. But now, when you're looking at a situation where, despite the fact that our Commerce Minister is over there, he's expected to come back. There are backroom negotiations. The bilateral trade talks are taking place, and now you have 25%, which is a staggering amount of tariff which is being imposed. India would obviously want to negotiate that. I'm still awaiting some kind of a structured reaction to come in from the Commerce Ministry. But it's very clear that for the American president, when it comes to doing business, China and India, to a very great extent, are put on the same plane. However, sources over here have been maintaining that tariff on China has been much, much higher, and India, in fact, has been much more of a beneficiary as far as America's trade tariff policy.
And that's true, because India sees this as a strength. And remember, Apple and India go back many years ago now. And Apple has invested billions of dollars in India. And could this now mean another setback apart from the tariffs for India, which is currently in the interim negotiations for that bilateral trade agreement?
But I think when Apple had first opened shop over here, it also, as I said, it's working out to be much cheaper. For Indians, Apple manufactured in India obviously would have worked out to be much, much cheaper, which is why there was a lot of enthusiasm over it. And there have been figures which have been put out by the Finance Ministry. We also showed a surge in sales, and especially those iPhones being manufactured right over here in India. As I said, Akansha, it also reflected a deep confidence in India that we had the capability, the credibility, and the manpower talent to manufacture the highest standards of iPhones being manufactured by Apple. This is a setback because obviously, it also means that the iPhones will become much, much more expensive. Right. 25% is not a small amount.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
From the United States, this is with regards to Donald Trump issuing a new threat to Apple, as President Trump has now said that Apple should face a minimum of 25% tariffs on iPhones made outside the United States. And clearly that's a direct threat to Apple's manufacturing plans in India, as we all know. And Donald Trump now coming up with a fresh threat of slapping 25% tariffs as far as iPhones made outside the US are concerned. Pallavi Ghosh joins me with more inputs on that news story. Pallavi, take us through what this could mean for Apple's plans in India.
Well, this would be certainly seen as a bit of a setback, because the entire idea of opening Apple plants over here is that you would get state-of-the-art iPhones which are manufactured in India, which that production has already begun. and which obviously, one, it also goes and shows the confidence of multinational companies into India and investing over here and opening shop over here. And second, there was a belief that it would also mean that products would become much, much cheaper. Now, recently when Donald Trump had told Tim Cook that you cannot open Apple plants in India, the government sources, Commerce Ministry sources had also pointed out to say that politicians often don't dictate to the businessmen, and businessmen don't really need to listen to them. And India was very confident that, Tim Cook would not change his mind. Now, this latest comment coming in from the American president will certainly be seen as a setback. We'll have to wait to see if any structured response comes in from the government. But essentially what it would mean is that if you and I want to buy a phone which is manufactured over here in India, it is going to end up being much more expensive, which is going to be seen as the end of this investment.
So, Pallavi, what does this mean in the current, trade scenario where, remember, Apple is positioning India as an alternative to China, and we know how Donald Trump is currently threatened by China's manufacturing, but what does that mean for India, and does that also mean that one is now looking at
Good evening, you're watching Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. India is sending multi-party delegations across major global capitals from Washington to London to Moscow. Now, part of this attempt is to try and recapture some of the lost narrative away from Pakistan after Operation Sindoor and its aftermath. The question is, why will the international community take seriously the words of a terrorist state like Pakistan, which over the years, for the last 3 decades really, has been fomenting terrorism as an instrument of statecraft? Why would it